My name is Amara, and I'm 34 years old. The laughter in my parents' living room was uneven, scattered like dice on a table. My daughter, only 8, sat cross-legged on the carpet, her curls bouncing as she bent over her dollhouse. Then I saw it, my brother, Malik, waving something heavy in his hand. At first glance, I thought it was another toy. But no, the metallic glint in the dim light told me otherwise. It was a real gun. He pointed it at the ceiling, at the sofa, then carelessly, almost playfully, at my little girl. My chest seized. "Malik, put that down." My voice cracked through the chatter. He grinned, swinging it lazily as if it were no more dangerous than a remote control. "Relax, sis. You're too uptight." "No, I'm not relaxing." I pushed forward, reaching out, my pulse hammering. Pointing that at anyone is insane, especially at her. But before I could get closer, my parents' voices thundered from behind me. "Do not yell at him," my father barked, his hand slicing the air as though I had just committed some unspoken crime. My mother joined in, her tone sharper than the metal in Malik's hand. "Can you not see he's playing? Let him have his time." My body froze. The words didn't match the scene in front of me. My daughter's eyes were wide, her doll forgotten in her lap. Malik spun the weapon again, emboldened by their approval, the click of the safety echoing like a cruel joke. Encouragement, that's what they were giving him. Encouragement to keep moving it around, to keep treating a loaded gun like it was nothing. I felt heat rise to my face, my nails pressing crescents into my palm. I wanted to scream, to snatch it from him and smash it against the floor. But instead, I looked at my parents, their prideful nods, their indulgent smiles. My own family, blind to the danger, blind to me. The betrayal wasn't just Malik's recklessness. It was theirs, their choice to defend him over my daughter's safety. I glanced at the mantel, where an old family photo in a cracked frame still sat. Me, Malik, and our parents smiling in a world that had long since fractured. The glass had split across my face in that photo years ago, and tonight it seemed more than symbolic. The room pulsed with tension, laughter turned brittle, and the silence between each word grew louder than the words themselves. I thought to myself, have you ever had family cross your boundaries so sharply it left you breathless? Let me know in the comments. And in that moment, as my brother spun the gun like a toy, I realized silence would no longer protect anyone. The gun's barrel glinted as Malik twirled it between his fingers, and every second felt like glass scraping against my skin. My daughter inched back toward the sofa, clutching her doll as though its stitched smile could shield her. "Malik." I stepped closer, my tone lower, steadier this time. "This isn't a joke. Put it away." He tilted his head, mocking me. "You always ruin the fun. Don't you ever get tired of being the problem?" My father chuckled, sipping from his glass. "He's young, Amara. Boys test their strength. Let him." I whipped my head toward him. "Strength? You call this strength?" He's pointing a loaded weapon at his niece. The laughter in the room dimmed, but no one moved. My mother folded her arms across her chest. "Don't dramatize everything. She's fine. Look, she isn't even crying." I looked at my daughter again. Her lips were trembling, but she held herself still, frozen by fear, by loyalty, by confusion. Children learn quickly what silence is worth. I lowered my voice, but the words carried like thunder. One wrong flick of his finger, and she's gone. Do you even hear yourselves? Malik raised the gun toward the chandelier, smirking. Bang. "See? Nobody's dead. You should relax. Maybe you'd be easier to live with if you learned how." A bitter taste filled my mouth. I realized in that instant it wasn't about the gun. Not entirely. It was about how my family had built an entire world where Malik's recklessness was allowed, excused, even admired. Where my warnings became nagging, my concerns became hysteria. Every childhood memory replayed in a blink. Malik smashing windows. Boys will be boys. Malik wrecking my first car, He's just adventurous. Malik breaking my heart with betrayal after betrayal. Forgive him, Amara, he's your brother. And now, a weapon in his hand, aimed near the most precious thing I had. And still they applauded. I felt my body sway, slightly, the way you do when you realize the ground beneath you isn't steady after all. My eyes flicked again to that cracked photo frame on the mantel. The line across my image, my face severed by a break, no one bothered to repair. It hit me like a whisper. They had chosen him over me a long time ago. I pressed my palms against my thighs, forcing myself to breathe evenly. I wasn't going to scream. Not yet. My anger would not be their entertainment. Instead, I looked at Malik, then at my parents. The air was thick, brittle, ready to snap. And I promised myself, not in words, but in silence, that they would soon understand exactly what it meant to ignore me. The room had grown colder, though no window was open. The laughter that once filled it lingered in a stale aftertaste, like smoke trapped in curtains. Malik sat back in his chair now, the gun resting loosely in his lap. Every so often he tapped the barrel against his knee, as if it were a toy drumstick. My daughter stayed glued to my side. Her small hand slipped into mine, her pulse racing through her fingertips. I pressed back, steady, a silent promise that I wouldn't let anything happen to her, though my parents' eyes seemed to say otherwise. You see the way she looks at me? Malik chuckled, nodding toward my daughter, like I'm a superhero. I leaned in slightly. My voice was low, edged with steel. No, she looks at you like she's waiting for you to decide if she gets to live another day. The words hung, sharp and cutting. For a second, the smirk faltered. But then my mother hissed, Enough, Amara. Stop poisoning the evening with your paranoia. Paranoia. That word stung more than I expected. How many times had they thrown it at me like salt in a wound? Each time I demanded fairness. Each time I stood up for myself. Paranoia. A way to silence me without raising their voices. I reached for my glass of water on the table. My hand trembled, just slightly, but I steadied it before lifting it to my lips. The clink of glass against the coaster echoed too loudly in my ears. Tell me, Dad, I said, staring across the room. If this were a stranger waving a gun around your granddaughter, would you still say he's just playing? My father didn't flinch. He only shook his head, as if I had said something pitiful. You don't understand loyalty. Family protects each other. I let out a quiet laugh, bitter and disbelieving. Protects each other? He's the one with a weapon, and you're shielding him. Tell me, who's protecting her? Silence. My daughter's doll slipped from her hand onto the carpet with a muted thud. Malik leaned back further, satisfied, like a king in his kingdom. And me? I realized something terrifying. This wasn't an argument I could win with words. This was a performance, one they had rehearsed all my life. Malik, the golden boy. Me, the overreacting sister. My parents, the biased audience applauding the wrong act. The photo frame on the mantel caught my eye again. The cracked glass shimmered faintly in the lamplight. I thought, maybe fractures don't have to be repaired. Maybe they are reminders. And in that instant I knew, if they wouldn't protect my child, then I would protect her from them. Not with fury, but with something sharper, with truth. Malik leaned forward now, twirling the gun lazily again, as though my silence was some kind of victory he'd earned. My parents settled back in their chairs, a strange smugness painted on their faces, like the scene had ended in his favor. But for me it hadn't ended. It had only begun. Give me that, I said calmly, extending my hand toward Malik. He arched a brow. What? Suddenly you want to join the fun? Give it to me, I repeated, sharper this time. My daughter's fingers clutched tighter into mine, her nails digging crescents into my skin. He shrugged, then tossed the gun onto the sofa cushion beside him, its weight pressing into the fabric. Relax. Safety's on. The casualness of it set something inside me alight. I walked over, lifted the weapon carefully and held it upright. It was heavier than I imagined, the cold metal pulling against my arm. I placed it firmly on the coffee table between us, the sound of steel against wood cutting through the air. Everyone's eyes followed it. "There," I said quietly. "Now nobody's playing." But my father scoffed, dramatic as ever. "Dramatic?" I echoed, my laugh hollow. "You call it dramatic to want my daughter alive?" Malik leaned back, smirking again. "You act like I'd actually hurt her." I stared at him long and hard. "Would you?" "Because the truth is, I don't know anymore." The words landed heavier than I expected. Even he didn't answer right away. For a flicker of a second, doubt crossed his face. I sat down slowly, my palm brushing against the cracked photo frame on the mantel as I lowered myself into the chair. I turned it toward the room, deliberately. The fracture across my face in the picture caught the light. "This," I said, holding it up, "is us. Broken. And you all keep pretending the cracks aren't there. But I see them. I've always seen them." My mother shifted uncomfortably, her arms folding tighter. Malik clicked his tongue, annoyed. My father looked away, suddenly fascinated by the condensation sliding down his glass. I set the photo down carefully, my voice steady. "One day, that gun won't be a game. And when it happens, you won't be able to say I didn't warn you." The silence that followed was the loudest of the night. My daughter's breathing hitched beside me, soft but real. And though no one spoke, I felt something shift. Not in them. In me. I wasn't going to beg them to see any more. I would show them. The gun sat on the coffee table, heavy and unmoving, its presence slicing through the air like a blade no one wanted to touch. My daughter leaned against me now, her small body trembling despite my arm wrapped firmly around her. I could hear her heartbeat when she pressed closer, a rhythm faster than any child should be. Malik stretched out his legs, smug as ever. "You're overblowing this, Amara. You always have. Remember when I took Dad's car at 15? You screamed the house down then too. And guess what? Nothing happened." "Nothing happened," I repeated softly. "That's what you think. But things always happen, Malik. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes so quietly that only the ones paying attention can hear it." My mother scoffed, waving her hand as if brushing off smoke. "You exaggerate. You've always been fragile. Why must you make enemies out of your own blood?" Fragile. The word was a thorn pressed deeper into skin already raw. I wanted to snap back, but instead, I picked up the cracked photo frame again, holding it steady in my lap. "You call me fragile," I said, my voice low, but glass cuts deeper than stone when it breaks. The line caught Malik off guard. His smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. My father frowned, annoyed, but stayed silent. I traced the crack across my photograph smile with my thumb. This house has always been built on pretending. Pretending Malik is strong when he's reckless. Pretending silence is loyalty. Pretending my boundaries don't exist. My words filled the room like smoke no one could escape. I turned to my daughter, brushed her hair gently back from her forehead, and kissed her temple. "But I won't raise her to pretend." Malik snorted, trying to shake it off. "You sound like you're giving some kind of speech. You think you're better than us." I met his gaze evenly. "No, I think I finally see you for what you are." The chandelier above us hummed faintly as its bulbs flickered. The whole room seemed to exhale, though no one moved. For once, Malik had no quick comeback. The silence was jagged, but I embraced it. Let them sit in it. Let them feel how it weighed. My daughter's small hand pressed against my wrist, grounding me. And in that quiet exchange, I knew something had shifted. Not in them. No, they would cling to their illusions. The shift was in me. I wasn't asking for their respect anymore. I was taking it. The night dragged on, but no one dared to move the gun from the table. It sat there like an uninvited guest, stealing the air, daring someone to acknowledge its weight. Malik drummed his fingers against the armrest, trying to revive his arrogance, though the edges of his confidence had dulled. My parents, however, stayed rooted in their seats, stubborn, silent, their loyalty to him stronger than their logic. I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on the weapon. "Do you even realize," I said slowly, "that every time you excuse him, you make him smaller, not bigger? You call it love, but it's permission. Permission to destroy himself and everyone near him." My father's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." "I am," I replied calmly. "For once I am watching everything, and I don't like what I see." My mother's voice cracked like a whip. "You're ungrateful, Amara. We've given you everything. Everything." I let out a bitter laugh. "You gave me silence when he stole, excuses when he lied, forgiveness when he hurt people, and tonight you gave him your blessing to aim a gun at my child." The words stunned the room. Even Malik shifted, uncomfortable under the precision of my tone. His hand brushed the barrel absent-mindedly, but he didn't pick it up. I stood, the photo frame still in my hand. The fracture caught the chandelier light again, throwing a thin shard of brightness across Malik's face. "This crack," I said, holding it higher, "is what you made of me. But you didn't break me. You revealed me." No one spoke. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen became suddenly loud, the only sound in a house that had fallen mute. My daughter tugged gently at my sleeve. Her whisper was soft, but it carried a weight that grounded me. "Mommy, can we go home?" I bent down, kissed her hair, and nodded. "Yes, baby, we're going home." Turning back to my parents, I spoke with the calm of someone no longer begging to be heard. "You say family protects each other. Then hear this. I will protect her from you." My father's face reddened. "How dare you?" But I raised my hand, stopping him. "Don't. Not another word. You've said enough tonight." I slid the photo frame back onto the mantel, deliberately leaving the crack facing outward, no longer hidden. Then, with my daughter's hand in mine, I stepped toward the door. Malik's smirk was gone. My parents' silence followed us like a shadow. But for the first time, the silence belonged to me. The night air outside was cool, sharp against my cheeks. My daughter squeezed my hand as if afraid I might let go, but I tightened my grip, steady and certain. Behind us, the house stood still, a place I once called home, now nothing more than a stage where lies played endlessly. I opened the car door for her. She climbed in quietly, her doll pressed against her chest like a shield. When I slid into the driver's seat, I caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. They were wide, glassy, full of questions she didn't yet have the words for. I started the engine, but I didn't drive. Not yet. My own reflection stared back at me in the mirror. Older, sharper, not fragile. Never fragile. They said I was fragile, I whispered, mostly to myself. But glass can cut too. The words steadied me. On the passenger seat lay a folded envelope I had brought, one I hadn't planned on using tonight. Inside were copies of documents I'd been quietly collecting. Malik's unpaid fines, evidence of reckless behavior, reports of his escalating violence. I had tried to ignore them, hoping he'd change. But tonight proved what I had always feared. Given permission, he'd destroy more than just himself. My parents would never believe my voice alone. But paper? Paper carried weight. I tapped the envelope lightly, then tucked it deeper into my bag. My daughter's voice broke the silence. "Mommy, why did Grandpa and Grandma yell at you?" Her innocence stung sharper than any insult. I turned, meeting her gaze. Because sometimes people love the wrong way. They think protecting someone means ignoring the truth. But that's not love, baby. Not real love. She nodded, small and solemn, and leaned her head against the window. The drive home was silent, save for the hum of tires on the road. Yet in that silence my mind raced. I saw the cracked photo frame, Malik's smirk, my parents' denial. And I realized something vital. They had built their loyalty to Malik like a fortress. But fortresses don't just collapse. They are dismantled, piece by piece, and I knew exactly where to begin. The documents weren't revenge. They were protection, proof, the kind that would force others to see what my parents refused to. As the city lights flickered across the windshield, I whispered a quiet promise to my daughter, though she had already drifted into sleep. Never again, I said. No one will ever point a gun at you while I stand still. Not him, not them, not anyone. The steering wheel felt firm beneath my hands. For the first time in years, so did I. Morning light poured through my living room window, soft and golden. My daughter sat at the table, crayons spread out in a burst of colors, humming quietly to herself. The memory of last night still clung to me like smoke, but here, in this small, safe space, I felt a fragile peace. I set the envelope of documents on the counter. Its weight was different now, no longer a secret, but a choice. My phone buzzed. Malik's name lit the screen. I let it ring until it died. Then another call, my mother. Then my father. One after the other, desperate ripples in a silence they couldn't control. Finally, a message came through. We need to talk. Malik is in trouble. Please call back. Trouble. The word hung there, like a shadow I had predicted. I slid the envelope into my bag and picked up my keys, not to rush to them, but to take the documents where they belonged, to the lawyer whose card I'd kept for months, to the people who could ensure Malik's recklessness would no longer be hidden beneath the word play. As I zipped my bag, my daughter looked up from her drawing. She held up a page of bright colors, lines jagged but joyful. Look, Mommy, I drew us with no cracks. Her words pierced me. She didn't know about the photo frame, the split glass across my face. Yet somehow, she had erased it in her own way. I knelt beside her, cupping her small hands around the paper. That's beautiful, I whispered. That's what we're building. A life with no cracks. By noon, I sat across from the lawyer. The documents spread out like cards on a table. Unpaid fines, reckless behavior, witnesses to his violent streak. The lawyer's eyes narrowed, then softened. You've done the right thing. This isn't spite, Amara. This is protection. Protection. The word rang clear, cleansing. When I left the office, the city air felt different. Lighter. Not because Malik was finished, but because I was no longer trapped in their silence. My parents might curse me, plead with me, even turn against me completely. But the truth was already moving unstoppable. That night, I placed the cracked family photo frame on my own shelf. I didn't fix it. I let the fracture shine, a reminder that broken doesn't mean destroyed. And when I tucked my daughter into bed, she whispered, "We're safe now, right?" I brushed a curl from her face and kissed her forehead. "Yes," I said softly, "we're safe, and we always will be." The quiet filled the room, not heavy this time, but whole.